Hello and welcome to Voices of Enablement by GTM, an interview series focusing on the key issues affecting the enablement community today. It's a tough market right now. Organizations are cutting staff, pausing investments. How do you make a compelling case for the value of enablement is the question that we are seeking to answer. So our guest today is Sam Doshi. Sam is an active SEC member and leading the enablement function at simPRO Software. Also, Sam is an ex-LinkedIn just like myself. So we have our own LinkedIn lingo, but we'll refrain from using that. Welcome, Sam. Great to have you on the show. I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on. Always love talking about all things enablement. And so I'll try to keep it short today for the audience. But yeah, I've been in enablement for about 5 or 6 years and fell in love with the enablement world through getting exposed to it, working at different startups as a either first in seat sales manager or sales operator at some level, and having to build out playbooks and learning from a very 0 point state to a full-blown playbook and onboarding and continuous education apparatus. And so really loved the science of putting that together and combining it with the art, and just kind of became an enablement geek, so to speak. Before going into that enablement side, as I mentioned, had gone into sales leadership and been a player coach in the past. Really started my career in sales back in the early 2000s after college as a sales account executive. And so I really understand the plight of the salesperson. And really, I want everyone to know that salespeople are helpful people. We want to help. We want to feel valuable. And I thought, hey, wouldn't it be great to support that on an internal basis, and as well as making that impact on the buyer. And so I've had a chance to work at some large companies where felt like I've been going to college, like LinkedIn. I felt like I went to college there and learned from some of the smartest people. And then now having a chance to bring that value on the front lines here at simPRO has been a great opportunity.
Great to hear, Sam. And thanks for standing up for enablement. And since you've been in sales, you have a vantage point on both sales and as well as enablement. So can't wait to dig more into your expertise. So let's kick this off. The very first question, Sam, I have is, like I said, these are not great times for the enablement, and a lot of layoffs are happening. Enablement is seen as a cost center versus a force multiplier they can be. So how do you think we can elevate the role of sales enablement with the C-suite when many of the support functions are being cut?
This is a great question, and I think it's a really smart question because it's probably the biggest question keeping everybody up at night. It comes to job security. It comes to feeling good about what you're doing for the community. And so as I really like the SEC community because we're always problem solving. And I think one that I've just shamelessly had a tough time answering is this one, is what does it mean at the end of the day to make an impact? And I think the question there is where we need to stay. And so if I'm talking to my sales leaders at the C level or whoever's in the ELT, it comes down to 2 things, I think. The investment we're making and the return we're getting, right? Not really revolutionary there, but it's probably a good equation for everything in life, from diet to working out, everything. But if we're thinking about it strategically, one story that we can't tell, the piece that is so important is the piece that we're most fuzziest about, which is the revenue impact and the quantification. We have to create a good culture. We don't even want a bottom line improvement or lift if it's at the sacrifice of culture, because it's not sustainable. In my opinion, right? We can't just burn everybody and churn. We've all probably had jobs in the past, speaking of sales, not going to say any companies, but where it's like a revolving door and you're sitting next to somebody cold calling and you don't see them the next week. And so that's a tremendous burden on training and onboarding. I think we need to spell it out. So my number one tactic is to just spell it out on a slide, an executive slide that you can send to any executive or tailor it. I like to have a different slide for every department into kind of a sales enablement anthology. And I'm making it sound more important than it's important, but I'm making it sound more artful than it really is. But it's just one slide. You know how busy executives are. One slide that shows for your department, what did sales enablement do, correlated or causated to maximize and close the sales execution gap or any execution gap. What does that look like? Well, it could mean productivity and then out to revenue for the, let's say, for the sales team. It could mean, hey, this quarter we had folks 5 join and they were able to close their first deal in 5 weeks versus 8 weeks. And in the similar pacing in the pre-enablement era, let's say they closed $80,000. Now they're closing $120,000. And so in the executive's mind, they didn't have to. The first service you provided is they did not have to do that math. I don't want anybody doing math on my behalf. So that just means I have an opportunity to do it for them. And if I can do it for them and it's validated, and we have all the data at our disposal, and we even have sometimes BI folks that can help us. So reaching out across the aisle to get those folks to just help you do the math for the executive is going to go a long way, both in social capital, but also in just showing the impact on dollars. And then I found then they have a lot more of an appetite to talk about the culture and other things that is very important to them. But as long as you're taking care of the holes in the boat and the boat's going faster and faster, then we can get more comfortable seats in the boat. I think that's the way I think about it.
Yeah, yeah, great analogy, Sam. One question I have is, like you said, it's always related to the efforts that you're putting and what is the return on that. And I've been speaking to a lot of enablement people, and we all know the answer to that, but it's so tough. A lot of people, they're not even able to measure the ROI of their enablement efforts. And I was talking to somebody, and he said, enablement is responsible to sales. They're not responsible for sales, though we have to prove the ROI impact or that we are impacting the bottom line or the top line. But that's not something that is in our control. So that is probably the lagging indicator that we look at. And then for us, the leading indicators are probably the competency or the rep adoption. So can you talk to us more on the metrics that you think the enablement can focus on? Obviously, the North Star is the revenue or the deal closure. But what are the other metrics that enablement can focus on, which are in their control, and then look to correlate with the lagging metrics?
Yeah, it's a great way to break it apart. And I think this clarity we're infusing into the apparatus is a service in itself, because this is what you just described is the format for the executive slide, right? And we can spell it out. We can just call it out and say, hey, this is the investment side, which is sales readiness, and probably recognize that term because we've both been at LinkedIn, which is it's an amazing company to work for. It's like they're paying you to get educated, which is usually the opposite in the real world. But yeah, I think readiness is one, and that's the investment side. That's like, are we doing 2 hours of coaching per rep? If we look at McKinsey, if we look at other validators in the market, I'll just speak to the readiness and I'll speak to the effectiveness in a moment. I think we need to just have maybe 25% faith in what we're doing and really tell the right story so other people will believe in our coalition inside the company. So let's say we have a group of let's say a cohort of reps. We want to consistently have coaching touch points, whether that's the frontline manager working with them, whether that's you as a sales coach, as a sideline coach. We want to have that 2 hours per week if we can get to that holy grail, because we've seen that if we can do that, we have reps that get 30 on average, less than 30 minutes per week in coaching, and they're closing at a rate of 43%. And obviously there's a million stats out there, but if we can get them to that 2 hours per week, their closing rate goes to 53% or 56%, I should say. And so you're talking about a 25% increase almost at that point, or around that amount. And so when you apply that to their pipeline, I mean, that's 25%. that's a great outcome, and that can pay for expansion on the enablement team. Once you start proving that, then you can go to your leader and say, department head, and say, hey, let's get some budget for 2024. We're seeing that we can improve this. And so you can see how we can stitch the story together in a very compelling way, in a meaningful way. So that on the readiness side, we want to have that filling of the jar, right, with the right material. And so there's a learning quota, right, with effective learning series and gap-based training programs that's bespoke to the individual, because we use technology to make a personalized experience with the right LMS and apparatus. And then on the sales effectiveness side, right, like on a deal econometrics, or the productivity side, we want to make sure that we're taking care of what the rep really cares about. Because a rep who sometimes gets forgotten in this equation, a lot of times in our mind, we're like, are we using them? Or are we really, is that our main customer? And I think the rep is our main customer. I know people say it's the C-level, it's this, that. I really think it's the rep. I'm going to keep the sports analogies to a minimum here, but I'll say the Warriors, right? Like everybody's pretty interested in Steph Curry. Everyone's pretty interested in Steve Kerr too, but I think they'd rather keep Steph Curry than Steve Kerr at the end of the day. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking it probably need both. I should say, let me walk that back before I make everybody mad. But I think you need your star player more than you need anybody. I think you see a lot more of that focus, and I think the reps really deserve that attention. Yeah, because they're in the war, right? Yeah. But I want them to feel like, almost like the mentality is when things are getting really chaotic out there, that's when people are looking for the lifeboats, right? So don't forget that in a chaotic business world, people, they might not know it themselves, but they need sales reps. They need advisors to figure things out. If everything's perfect, probably don't want to be in sales. There's probably not a compelling reason or purpose. And I know salespeople, and I know they want purpose, and they live for driving value, and then they like closing the deal, not just for the money, but they know they did something effective. They're athletes. Yeah. And so on that side, I think sales cycles are funny, right? Sometimes you want them to be longer because you get more money, you get more value. Sometimes you need to teach an org. If it's a large enterprise deal, does the buyer really know what they're buying? Because oftentimes they're saying no to something they have no idea about. So what's the sweet spot of they know just enough to be dangerous, but not enough to drown in knowledge, right? So we have to be smart in showing the salesperson, because they're not going to have time to study other patterns. what is the pattern intelligence of how to best pace and approach your business as a mini CEO? So I think the middle layer between readiness and effectiveness is just awareness, right? Just what's going on in the business world, industry. How can you run your business? And I tell reps all the time, think of yourself as a mini business, because if you take your pipeline value and apply it to the marketplace, your pipeline is more valuable than most small businesses in the US or on the globe. So if you don't think of yourself as a managing director or a mini CEO, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're working in a team. The overhead is taken care of by your company, but I mean, you're running a $4 million pipeline. Like that's a lot of these chains out here don't have that type of unit volume. So I think on the effectiveness side, let me just get to the answer here that I've learned from others. Speed to deal, like let's say speed to lead, let's say across the funnel, right? You have to have if you're BDR, you're getting those inbound leads, you're trying to get to them within minutes, right? So under 5 minutes, under 10 minutes, I think you're effective. You're fast. So it's a high velocity game at that point. So I think speed to lead, I think closing times, right? From the moment you have that disco demo call to when you're closing. I think other things would be the size of the deal, right? Like how are you pacing? The amount of pipeline you have, do you have 4x coverage, right? Is that supported by your conversion rate? So there's like this core set of health metrics that's like your MyFitnessPal or whatever it is, right? You just have to have those because that's your nutrition label, your daily values, whatever analogy you want to use. But beyond that, I just think there's some proxy things to buttress that. And I think one is, are you getting ghosted? Are clients calling you? Do you have a book of business? Do you have 10 clients that you close that you keep in touch with on a regular basis? And are they advocates? Like that post-sale funnel, I think is really orphaned a lot of times. I think we get the money and we forget about the client. Not at simPRO. simPRO doesn't. I'm not going to talk any specific company. I think it's natural because we had the food and now we're full and now we don't care about it. Like, okay, let's just move forward to the next meal. But I think we need to really keep in mind that it's special that a client gave us an investment and we have to continue to earn it every day and forget about what happened before. Today is a new day. Let's see what we can do special for this client. Can we send them something? Can we just call them? One challenge I sent my team when I was running a team at Persado in 2017, one of the last times I was actually a sales manager, a player coach, I set out a challenge. I said, hey, I want you guys to have such quality conversations because I believe in you all, that you are high quality people. I'm thinking, why don't clients just call you out of the blue? Because they just want to talk to a smart person that's going to help them. We just put that in our osmosis, right? We just put that in the ether and we just and we started getting clients, no joke, just calling us out of the blue and say, hey, I had a quick question, because we would say something on the call like, hey, if you have a question, I want to be valuable. I don't care about anything else, but you making sure you know me as a high value person. But I think behaviorally, that's the other piece, the fourth piece. If I just summarize here, this is a long response. I'll keep it otherwise short, but passionate about this topic is you got the sales readiness, which is the investment, the hours of coaching and the learning quota. Are you doing 4 hours of learning, effective learning per month, whatever it is? Number two is sales effectiveness, right? Like, are you funnel metrics? Are you converting? And at what speed? And at what amount? Volume and velocity. Are you aware of what's going on? Are we making investments in feeding you industry information? Are your business acumen? And number four is, that advocacy. What are you doing that's good for the community? And are you actually out there providing value when it doesn't mean you're going to get anything? And I think this is where the soulful piece is going to really stand out, because AI, other things are really going to take care of the mechanical stuff. But the spiritual side is something I don't think ChatGPT is really going to be able to inspire as much as it'll be a knockoff compared to having an actual human interaction, right? You could buy a fake Rolex and it looks exactly like the real thing, but who knows that it's not the real thing? You. And that's what makes a big difference. I think with human interaction, humanity is going to continue to make a comeback or be here and be the main focus. And I think on the advocacy side, people are thirsty. They have an appetite to do good for each other in the community. And I think it's important we focus on that too.
Yeah. Great point, Samir, on the one thing that is to elevate the quality of conversation, because as we know, right, enablement is not responsible for sales, but one thing they can control is drive those behavior changes. And we know if we are driving those behavior changes, asking the reps or promoting the reps to have better quality conversations, we know that will translate to the revenue outcome. So and that way you can't really stress on the probably the lagging metrics, but the things that you can control, which is to elevate the rep or ensuring that they're having quality conversations. So I'm just curious, Sam, what else do you have on that one slide? And if there's a way you can show us that particular slide that you're talking about, the other enablement practitioners would love to see.
Yeah, I'd have to make sure that I would love to share it, but thank you for taking interest in it, by the way. It's amazing how simple things are usually are sometimes the most eternal things, right? It's just a very basic, doesn't have to be very pretty, it just has to be effective. Yeah. I think at the top, it has to be audience driven. Everything has to be audience driven. We start out in sales, we talk about us. 10, 20 years in the game, we don't talk about us. We actually hold off. We don't pitch. Isn't it funny? In sales, the best sellers don't pitch. It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's the most interesting thing to me. I'm getting like, it's just fascinating. You
Yeah.
start, and I remember somebody said, "Hey, what's the most important thing in sales?" And I said, "Talking." In my first day on onboarding, and which is the wrong, absolutely the exact opposite wrong answer.
Yeah.
And now I know it's not about me. It's not about my product. It's not about talking. It's about that person, 100%. And let's qualify or disqualify. And I will
Yeah.
disqualify on your behalf. And so when they
Yeah.
feel that energy, man, it just changes the game because you actually do care. And so I think the same thing can be said to internal stakeholders. And I think it has to start with the top line of what is enablement doing for you?
Mm.
And number one is data. So let's say we're talking to the CRO. Here's a breakdown of your organization of what you expected and what we're producing today and how we're trending over time. So that's revenue coming in, how much, how fast, and then churn. We also want to take a look at once we've acquired this customer, this client, we want to take care of them. Last thing we want to do is lose them. If they're the right fit, ICP wise, they're the right fit. Why, right? Why are they not staying with us? And can we use that information to feed into other conversations to be more proactive about these leaks? So if it means our product is terrible, let's fix it. If it means our experience is terrible, let's fix it. We need to do something. I think it's like revenue coming in at what speed and what volume, performance, how much the team is performing, and who's not hitting quota, who is hitting quota, and I think investment. So what is enablement doing as far as an effort, a brute force standpoint? Is just like we're gonna ship this. We're gonna package and ship trainings that are effective. And so in a 30-second look, we can see the money's good, the investment's good, and we're moving in the right direction. I think that's the core of what they want to be able to take the other leaders.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a very data-driven enablement approach, especially when you're talking to the CXOs, because like you said, they don't have, they're not going to impress by fancy slides. They want to look at the data, and that is where enablement have the data. Okay, where are we missing numbers and why are we missing numbers? And this is the initiative we can take to drive this behavioral change. And this is what we think the outcome would be. Again, right, in a very simple language, if we're able to explain that, that is good enough to be a strategic partner or to get a buy-in from the CXO.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think your point there you made about simple language. I think simple human language that isn't coded. You know how it goes, and we've worked in Silicon Valley. We know we like to. We do this too. I mean, I've done this too, where it's like we like to brand our own language and we like to be coded because this is how we become a thought leader. And I think we're riding the curve now where simplicity is so desired, and we don't trust coded language anymore because we're like, why is it coded? And I think it just starts to turn people off, right? It's always that you could feel it as you're in sales, you're a sales leader. You know when you're losing the audience, and I think it's you're like, oh gosh, what's going on here? And then you look at yourself, and I'm sure you're just knowing you for a short amount of time, I know that I trust that you're always looking to improve. You look back at yourself and go, let me just say that in a simpler way. And I'm with you on that. I think the plainest, if it's a bagel, just get the plain bagel, cream cheese, plain cream cheese. Just keep it super plain. Because we have to understand our audience. You have to understand the CRO is that's not the only slide they're going to look at today. So you're lucky you get 5 minutes with them. And so and then you earn it, and then you might get 10 minutes. And you earn it, you might get 30 minutes. And then before you know it, again, it goes back to that they should be calling you. And they should be like, you should be so valuable, they should be calling you over the other VPs and other folks. And so it's always sales. It's just all sales.
Yeah. I'm a big The Office fan, like Michael Scott used to say, explain to me like I'm five. So I've seen a lot of SDR emails where they're writing industry leading or breathtaking or number one AI platform. You figure out that these are the things, these are all the buzzwords that are trending in the market. So the idea is just to make it in a very simple language, and so that the other person will feel that an email is coming from a human, not some AI bot. So I think simplicity is a way to go.
You're absolutely right. And just very quickly on that, I could not agree more because we preach to our BDRs today, humanity is the best play, on both sides. You be you. The playbook is just a calibration, but you be your personality. The weirder you are, the more you're going to convert. That's how you stick out. Be yourself. And that's the most easy thing to sustain, is just to be yourself. I think that's what we learn in life when we get a little bit older. You're just like, well, I really don't have a choice. I have to be myself. And I really promote that. I've had these conversations with folks. I'm like, you guys are extremely, this team extremely talented. I appreciate just being around you folks. But be yourself. And that's my number one piece of advice. And I think the number two is, to your point, when you when you can just eliminate the effort. So it's like zero effort for the audience, zero strain. You know, when you look at an email, you go, okay, you size it up in your head in 5 nanoseconds, 1 nanosecond, you go, this is going to be difficult. This is going to be a chore, or this is going to be delightful, right? Like you look at, it's just the presentation, the optics, the initial first impression is the last impression when it comes to that. And so if you can give off this vibe of zero effort because I've deliberately and intentionally taken the pains to remove the pains, and this is high value, high gain, so it's economical for you. Everything is economical for you working with me. Lower effort day by day for you, higher output and higher gains for you. That is a high gravity thing. People pull to that. People are attracted to that. So I think that's the vibe I really want for our sales team, is to be, I work with this person and I go faster and I sweat less. So who doesn't like that?
Yeah. Sam, one question I have is, because like you said, your end customers are the sellers, the users. And I've spoken to a lot of, again, the one perspective that I've got is it's not easy to drive those behavioral changes. You know, the reps have to adopt, and a lot of sales managers are not even bought into the idea of enablement, because in their mind, they feel that sellers should spend more time on selling rather than getting coached. So, and one thing that I've learned is that it takes a tripod approach if we have to drive the behavioral changes. One is the seller, one is the enablement, and one is the frontline sales managers. Enablement alone cannot do it. So can you, and it's very hard to get a buy-in from the frontline sales managers. So can you talk to us more on getting a buy-in from the frontline sales manager, or what kind of metrics do you promise them, in order to get their reps to get into any kind of coaching?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I'll tackle this in the way that you posed it, which is the behavior and then the metrics. So let's talk about this, the behaviors, right? It's difficult. Yes, it is. And sustaining it, reinforcing it is where we lose. But what I've noticed is this: if you ask somebody on the planet, do you want to be more effective? And by working so do you want more by doing less? Absolutely. Everybody will, for the most part, especially in sales, will say yes.
Yeah.
But they will not want to go to training. And they will not want to, they don't believe in it. They don't believe in it yet. And I don't blame them, because training has always been, I don't think training is going to be kind of controversial, I guess, but I don't think training has really traditionally been for the audience. I think it's been a checkbox item that some poor stakeholder needed to deliver on quickly. And there are folks out there that do care. I mean, everybody in the sales enablement community, we're trying to solve for this problem. And there are now this new culture of very audience seller centric, and let's make it bespoke, micro trainings, just modern learning approach, four-door. All of this is now there because we come from being treated that way generically, and we don't want to perpetuate that. Behaviorally, I think it comes down to absolutely what you said. I think it's a couple. The way I break it down is like two triangles, I would say. All right, one is you have to have clarity on what you're doing. Again, there has to be a slide for the change management that everybody knows. What's the methodology? What's the competency? How are we going to coach to it? And that audience member, that rep, needs to understand that. Why is it happening, and what's going to happen, and how is it going to happen? They have to. I'm sure you've seen that, the why, the what, the how, all that's very important. And we were talking at LinkedIn. Every slide deck starts with that. They deserve it. They need to be oriented. You'd be surprised how many times in training we kick off. There's nothing about that. There's no why.
Yeah.
I will tell you the times that I do training where it's, hey, did you notice if you talk about pricing 45 minutes in a 60-minute conversation, you have a 65% chance of getting your next meeting on the books in the next week? Everybody's like, no, I didn't know that. Yes, I want that. And that goes back to the lower effort, higher output. And they go, and there's the data validation. You have to validate, because we have it now. We have Gong. We have validation. We have to leverage, use it, push ourselves to use it to the max. Get as much juice out of that as you can. And I'm not doing enough at all. I am still not doing it nearly enough, like by far. Even talking to you, to us, we're like, oh, are we doing a good job there? No, we can be way better. And we can serve that validation up to our audience. The first slide, hey, this is why we're here. This is the methodology, the competency, and the coaching we're going to put in place for you to capture this fruit. And then this is what it means to the buyer. So that storytelling is very important. The other triangle or cycle, let's say, bring that data validation, that scientist approach to the frontline manager as well. But then the artful side is building a relationship genuinely. It does not mean doing fake rapport, causing rapport deficits and all this stuff. It means, hey, I want to understand your business. What are your personal goals and what are your professional goals? How can I help or not help? Am I the right person or am I not the right person? Classic Sandler selling, right? Like talk about the negative too, right? And it's okay. I just want the truth, and let's do good work together. If you don't believe in it, why? And so I think you have to have, you're in a new team, a discovery conversation with all of your stakeholders at least once a quarter, and or consistently, because business today will be way different in 3 months. So I think that's the beginning apparatus, and that second cycle, and I'll just kind of end on that point, is every training starts with the training, but that's not where we learn. That's where we become aware. Where the behavior changes is that next 90 days, that next 6 months, that next year. And we have to treat the human as a human. We have to know that they're not going to change big behavior. They're not going to be able to change 15 behaviors in 15 days. They're going to be able to change maybe 2-3 behaviors in a year, big ones. What do we want those to be? One is the conversation. Yeah. So that's, things fold into that, right? Effective communication, ability to actively listen. There's a lot of soft skills in there. Number 2 is the ability to close a deal, right? That comes with objection handling, knowing your business and being able to walk somebody through. And then there's other things, right? Knowing your product is very important, the value. And so those are things. Let's say if we focus on those 3 things, what's the cycle piece? Well, if you get the sales manager to say, yes, those are important to me. Yes, I want to work with you to improve those on my team. You got your 2 yeses. Time to go. And then you have to develop your training, but you have to spend more time on the next 90 days, the reinforcement. So when are we going to get together? I'll just give you a quick example. We have a bunch of talented BDRs on at the team at simPRO. So shout out to them. I don't know if they're going to listen, but hopefully they will. But I think I'm transparent. I'm very open. Even in my slide decks, I'll put a first slide that says, here's what went into the design thinking. So I show my work, right? I go, this is why we chose to do this for your benefit. This is what's in it for you. And then in the training, I'll say, hey, this is why we're going to do this training for 4 days as onboarding or activation, but we're going to spend more time in the next 90 days, which means you're going to have a chance to speak with me every week. And I want to hear from you. And I think the final piece, I don't hate to say it, I love to say it, I guess, is you have to bring your personality. Again, you have to be you. And the people, I know this is a soft one, but the best enablers are the ones that are, I don't know, it's going to sound, I don't know, take this how you want, but the other people can see that you're putting an effort to be a energy giver. Yeah. You don't have to be a yelling loud and be all, you just have to be authentic and genuine. Do they, people are smart. They know, are you doing just to do a check off, again, to that point, or are you here because you prioritize me? They need to feel that you prioritize them. Which means you need to have a conversation with yourself and go, do I actually care about this job? Why am I in this job? If it's for you, forget it. If it's for them, great. And then that's the start of it. So I think you are the difference maker at the end of the day.
Great points, Sam. And 3 things, we agree to, and I'm glad that you brought it up. One is the checklist enablement. There were enablement programs, they were doing for the sake of, checking a box that, yes, I did training, and not caring much about the sellers or not caring much about the outcome. We all know, right, the kind of market or the situation enablement is in, that is no longer there, or they're forced to change their behavior. Second is, historically, the enablement programs were not meant for keeping seller at the center point. It was all about dumping a bunch of training and forcing them to do some trainings, and also forcing them to go to another tool and to look for the information. But now the enablement has gotten much more data driven. Like you said, it's based on the personality of the seller. You do a lot more research and understand what are the behaviors that this particular seller need. If somebody's great at discovery, he doesn't need to do a discovery competency training. So analyzing that and making it very personalized for the sellers, and then obviously reinforcing, because people forget information. So how do you make it bite size? I think in today's world, where 30-second, 60-second videos are the maximum attention span that we have, how can enablement change themselves and make the programs into a bite size learning format? And the third thing, I think, getting a buy-in from the frontline sales managers. Great point on that. And that is how I think enablement can elevate their role, by going to the frontline sales managers and really telling them, okay, these are the problems that we see, these are the X number of sellers we think are lacking in this competency. If we don't do this, these are the negative impacts. Like you said, talk about the negative things. And if you do this, these are the positive things. So it's much easier to get their buy-in, and they will be, and like you said, reinforcement is very important. Enablement cannot have every week training sessions with the sellers. The reinforcement has to come from the frontline sales managers. In order to do that, they need to, you need to get a buy-in from them. So I think totally agree with all the points that you mentioned. And, again, as I said, great points.
Thank you. Yeah. And just really quick on that. I mean, I can tell from you're passionate about what you do. And it's great to be around people like that. If you're in enablement and sales training, it is so fundamental that you find a passion for this. If you're not, you've got to get out, because there's an opportunity cost. So it's not even neutral. It's draining. And so you cannot be a drag on the business and people's lives. It has to be that serious, in my opinion. I can be a little bit crazy about it, but I have a job where I need to grow, progress other people today. I cannot take. And if I'm not passionate about this, it's up to me to get out and go somewhere. Maybe I'm a firefighter. Maybe I'm this, that. I can't. I wouldn't be able to do that. God bless them. But I find these fires. But basically, I'm lucky, and I need to share that. Like, it's that alignment. I think the other point is a lot of times when we come into a startup or there's or a new business, season, it's chaotic. And I think we're going from a jazz band to an orchestra, and I think it takes a lot of coordination, and the communication is so key, and alignment is so key. Alignment and advancement at every point. You have to be sweating about who doesn't know what they need to know and why don't they know it. And there's always somebody, and it's difficult, but you can build this muscle and it gets easier, where the paranoia can be good, and it can be productive. And you can say, in my head, does this frontline sales manager know exactly what this training is going to be about, and how can I put it to them in 3 bullet points in Slack so we don't have to have a meeting about it? Okay, cool, done. And it took years to be able to figure out how to just put the information in headlines and bullets. This is something I've been trying to do for years, and I've learned from some of the best people out there. I think it's 6 years in, I'm still learning, but it's so important the way we package things and ship things. And it's almost like a fulfillment warehouse, but we have to be audience centric at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think alignment is very important. Like, I was talking to somebody and they said you have to over communicate.
Yes.
Always question that, okay, I think I have a great analogy on that. Just treat everybody, because enablement has to do a lot of orchestration. Sales team, product, customer success, frontline sales managers, just treat them as probably an insecure girlfriend, where you have to, over communicate everything. Okay, this is what we are doing and why we are doing this. So I think that will make the life easier.
It's a great rule. It's a great rule because it also triggers in that person your deliberate and intentional effort that you are working hard on their behalf. That's the greatest thing you can do in business, in my opinion, or to your community. At the end of the day, I think the overlap is it could be business or personal life, but it's community, right? We're in this fabric together. If I know you're working hard for me without expectation or condition, I'm going to gravitate like, oh, I need to be good with this person. And stakeholders, the first 90 days working with frontline sales managers, sometimes they can be cold. They're great people, but I actually respect the fact that they can be cold, because that means when they're warm, it's real. I think, it's good because that means they mean it when they mean it. And so, it's respect to be able to devote yourself and contribute to the community. And I think it's like that clarity and alignment, it helps attain that.
Right. Yeah, all right, Sam. I think we are almost to the end of the show. I think we need second part. We had plans to cover many topics, but I think your perspective on how to show value to the enablement and how to really tackle the triangle approach that you spoke about, how to get sellers buy-in and how to get the frontline sales managers buy-in. That was very thorough. So again, it was great to have you on the show. It was such a fun conversation, and I look forward to posting this, and we'll connect soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.